Welcome to Eye on Africa. I'm Clarisse Fortuné, and these are the top stories from across the continent. Starvation as a weapon of war. A new report accuses Sudan's Rapid Support Forces of destroying farms around El Fasher before alleged mass killings in October 2025. Congo-Brazzaville prepares to vote, but many young voters say they've lost faith in politics as veteran leader Denis Sassou Nguesso seeks to extend his 4 decades-long rule. And inflation in Libya is impacting local Ramadan celebrations as people struggle to cope with higher prices and a country divided in two. Some try to lend a helping hand to those less fortunate. But we start with yet another report on atrocities committed in Sudan's North Darfur as the conflict between the paramilitary RSF and the Sudanese army shows no sign of ending. A new study by Yale University suggests that starvation has been used as a weapon of war. It details evidence that the Rapid Support Forces committed a war crime by depriving the people of El Fasher of the means to produce food. I'm joined now by one of the authors of the report, Nathaniel Raymond. He's the executive director of the Yale School of Public Health's Humanitarian Research Lab. Thank you very much for being with us. So first, what are the key findings in this report?
The key findings of this report, which is the result of 2 years of research by the Humanitarian Research Lab, finds that 41 communities were intentionally burned by the Rapid Support Forces at the beginning of the siege period of El Fasher in spring of 2024. Additionally, we find that after the burning, those communities were depopulated, many overgrown with vegetation, and the farming communities, which are really the breadbasket that fed El Fasher, missed a planting season, as we can now tell mathematically through satellite imagery.
And these findings corroborate the latest UN allegations of genocide. Tell us more about this.
That's correct. The UN fact-finding mission report, which found that the massacre in El Fasher has, quote, the hallmarks of genocide, also noted that starvation was used against the people of El Fasher as a component act of the crime of genocide. Our report, released today, finds additional evidence that that indeed occurred, and that the amount of food produced by these communities and the distance from the farming communities to their farming fields suffered because of the attack by RSF systematically and intentionally.
And Nathaniel, here we are, reports after reports about all the atrocities committed in Sudan. So what do you hope to achieve by publishing this report?
That's a perfect question. We hope to achieve 2 things. One is accountability for the crimes of the past, but also a warning to hopefully prevent these crimes from occurring again.
So what does the report say about the RSF's intention when it launched the siege in El Fasher back in April 2024?
The report says about RSF's intention at the start of the siege is to basically systematically prevent El Fasher from being able to feed itself. We see fields left fallow. We see houses overgrown with vegetation, and we see an 87% jump in the amount of visible fire activity in the area. We also see RSF vehicles visible from space confirming eyewitness accounts that they attacked these villages, in some cases, multiple times. One village was attacked 7 times.
Let's talk about the methodology. So how did you produce that report?
With our partners at NASA Harvest, we basically used 4 methodologies together. One is analysis of fire data to detect arson. The second is analysis of vegetative growth activity to detect depopulation. And then we used 2 different approaches to measure the level of agricultural activity, which contracted significantly, and to measure the distance of these communities to the farming fields, which was a critical indicator of missed planting seasons.
So what now? Are the countries backing the RSF complicit? What about the role of the UAE and the US? What kind of role they played in this?
Wall Street Journal reported in October that U.S. intelligence services corroborated our conclusions that the UAE has supported RSF and have, during the siege of al-Fasher, even increased its assistance to RSF. RSF has committed crimes, including the crime of intentional starvation that this study shows. UAE is now complicit in those crimes.
Thank you very much, Nathaniel Raymond, Executive Director of the Yale School of Public Health Humanitarian Research Lab. Thank you for talking to us.
Thank you.
And in neighboring country, the United Nations mission in South Sudan is defying a government order to shut down its base in Akobo, refuge for tens of thousands fleeing violence near the Ethiopian border. Also an opposition stronghold. Last Friday, the South Sudanese army ordered the UN personnel, NGOs and civilians to evacuate ahead of a planned military assault. But the mission refused to leave, vowing to provide a protective presence for civilians. The South Sudanese government has been fighting opposition forces since a 2018 peace deal broke down about a year ago. Let's listen to Christophe Garnier, MSF head of mission in South Sudan.
Just weeks ago, thousands of people arrived displaced from previous jungle area where clashes happened. We are speaking about thousands of displaced people. They are fully exhausted. They have no access to health, no access to water. Our teams just started to set up some emergency action to support those IDPs in terms of health, vaccination, but also preparing the malaria season that will arrive very soon. Access to health is absolutely not ensured anymore. Hospitals are sometimes destroyed. Health facilities are closing.
Now, Madagascar's leader, Michael Ranjanirin, has dismissed his prime minister and dissolved the cabinet appointed just a month ago. He announced the government's suspension in a statement citing constitutional provisions. A new prime minister is expected to be named soon. Ranjanirin had promised a 2-year transition period leading to a new constitution and presidential elections in 2027. He had seized power in October after ousting former president Angie Wadswell following youth-led protests that erupted 5 months ago over critical water and power shortages. The Republic of Congo is preparing to elect its next president, but some young voters in the Central African country are increasingly disillusioned with politics. Incumbent President Denis Sassou Nguesso, who is 82 years old, is the favorite to win after more than 40 years in power. Vivas Mabwana reports from the streets of the capital, Brazzaville.
Voters between the ages of 18 and 35 years old represent half of the electorate in the Republic of Congo. But the big question driving the upcoming presidential election in the country is whether young people will go to the polls. 35-year-old Louis Anderson, for his part, is eagerly awaiting election day.
I will, of course, take part in the elections. Voting is a civic right. All citizens should normally exercise their right to vote. I must contribute to change in my country.
Jobs are the main concern for young people in the Republic of Congo. 1 in 2 people under the age of 25 is unemployed. Many say they also feel disillusioned about politics and by a history of unfulfilled promises made by politicians. As a result, some young people say they won't vote.
In my opinion, the elections are already over. We more or less know what the results will be. For me, there's no point.
Civil society groups have raised concerns about the credibility of the upcoming vote, saying that the preparations for the elections were marred by irregularities.
The current political class has failed. The country is heavily in debt. We're among the most indebted countries in Central Africa. We're also among the most corrupt countries in Central Africa, and I think there should be a change. But unfortunately, the conditions of the election will not allow us to have a change.
The Republic of Congo held its last election in 2021, and according to the Electoral Commission, turnout was 67%. Voters are called to the polls on the 15th of March.
Now to Libya, rising inflation has impacted Ramadan celebrations. Across the divided country, people are doing their best to cope with higher prices. In the eastern city of Benghazi, people are embracing the spirit of the holy month by lending a helping hand to the city's most disadvantaged. Our correspondents Lilia Blaise and Hamdi Tlili sent us this report.
At the Benghazi fruit and vegetable market, the price of produce is a hot topic of debate.
Thank God the prices are still reasonable. 4 kilos of potatoes at 10 dinars. 5 kilos of onions for 10 dinars. It's completely reasonable.
I think everything is expensive. Cabbage costs 10 dinars per kilo. Peppers are the same, and potatoes are even worse. To be honest, it's hard to make ends meet.
This father has come to do his shopping, while he has watched the country trying to rebuild after years of war between rival factions. Reining in the economy will take more time.
It's true that people are a little tired of the lack of economic recovery, but we hope things will get better. We are confident.
On the ground, local police regularly carry out checks to prevent price speculation. But the holy month remains marked by inflation. The increase in prices has been exacerbated this year by the depreciation of the Libyan dinar against the dollar. For the most vulnerable, this association prepares hundreds of food baskets each week during Ramadan.
Our basket is filled with small pleasures as well as essentials. We have ruina, a special drink enjoyed when breaking the fast, caramel creams, floral water, and coffee.
The association, which also cares for orphans of the 2011 revolution, covers around 500 families, including widows with several children.
The number of beneficiaries has increased significantly, though we are constantly updating our database. When a family situation improves or they receive outside help, we stop our support with their agreement and replace them with another family in need.
As poverty is a taboo subject in Libya, the association does not put its logo on the products and guarantees confidentiality to the beneficiaries. It's an act of solidarity carried out by these volunteers and by the donations of many Libyans throughout the country.
And this report concludes this edition of Eye on Africa. Thank you for watching.